Welcome back, everybody, to the Nosebleed Sports Podcast. I'm Chris Witt. With me, as always, is Mr. Adam Schmidt. Adam, how are you today, sir?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Wonderful, because today we have my favorite writer of every Inquirer writer there is, Elder graduate. Oh, by far, Xavier basketball. You know that whoever the Xavier basketball writer is my favorite writer at all times. If you're on YouTube right now watching this, then you already see his beautiful mug. Mr. Adam Baum, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for that introduction. It means a lot to me. And I feel like at the top of the show, we should probably just get it out of the way. You know, I know people are thinking about it. People are talking about it. But the Elder Panthers are ranked #1 in the state right now, boys. So
that was the first thing I was going to talk to you about.
How about that?
How about them Panthers, baby?
How much have you gotten to watch them?
Yeah, you know, one of the things I love about Elder is, you know, nowadays it really doesn't matter the sport. It doesn't matter if you're there. They've got this production crew that does just amazing work. You can watch all their games. So I've gotten to watch them quite a few times, and they're a scrappy bunch, man. You know, they obviously, I think you could scour the roster. You're not going to find any Division I prospects on that thing, but they know how to play together. And I think that's a huge thing at the high school level, is having guys on the floor that are comfortable with each other, that can kind of complement each other the way that they do. And man, it's fun to see an Elder basketball team, you know, ranked up there at the top of the state.
It is, I'll tell you, it is awesome. Adam and I both were fortunate enough to be at Elder when they made some deep runs into the playoffs. And it was the same way, you know. It's fun to watch these high school basketball teams go up against guys that are superstars and are division, like you said, high Division I players, and then just see a bunch of little dudes go out on the floor, play together, play well, be in the right spots, make the right shot, make the right pass, and that's what they do, you know. So it's great. I got to watch them in the Final Four back in, well, I guess I was a junior, I want to say 2000, 2001, somewhere in there. Adam had the great Walt Kelsey in his he was a year older than you or 2 years older than
He was in my class.
Oh, he was in your class. Yeah. So Adam was the manager of that team. So he got to practice with them every day. So and I was a freshman, so that was unbelievable. It was unbelievable, and I love that these kids get to do the same thing now.
Yeah, hopefully they can go on a run this year, man. That'd be cool to watch. I feel like it's been a little while since we've seen an Elder basketball team go on a nice little postseason run. So hopefully they can make that happen.
Yeah, they went on a little run last year. They got a little further, I think, for the kind of regular season they had. They went a little further than was expected.
Yeah, that's right.
But this is a better team. I mean, they're a better team this year, and I as a fan, I'm always, when my team is ranked #1 in anything, I always get way nervous. I'm like, no, I don't want to be #1.
I know that feeling.
Because that's part of the mystique, I think, about Elder, why Elder people love Elder, because Elder is more, to me, like you said, that, you know, they never have Division I prospects. They don't have the kids that Moeller has in basketball. And, you know, a lot of they just don't have that typically. And it's, no matter what kind of season they're having, even when Elder's a little down in a sport, they almost always get at least one of those big upset wins against, like, whether it's a GCL team or like a team that's like really highly ranked, maybe an Ignatius or a St. Ed's or something in football. Like we've had so many games like that in years where you maybe don't quite expect Elder to beat teams or compete with teams like that, and they always come up with something like that. And that's what, like, makes it. That's why Elder people are. That's why people are like, "Why are you so into your high school? You graduated 20 years ago." And it's like, you really like the t-shirts. They're kind of corny, but it's like you really don't understand unless you live it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
To this day, up until they wouldn't let him in anymore, Adam hadn't missed a basketball game in years until they forced them out. They forced them out. Speaking of being
until COVID thwarted your streak, man.
But I'll tell you, you're right though. And it's mostly student run too, and they do an awesome job of getting everything up and making it a pretty good production. So that's awesome. I love it.
So big props to the elder production team.
Yeah,
Man.
I've only watched 2 games this year, but they do a good job too. It looks good.
They do. I've gotten to go back and talk to the journalism class, and like even just some of the investments that they've made into developing that stuff is pretty remarkable. Like what it's become since I was there is crazy now, man. It's like if I was in high school right now, I'd be like a kid in a candy store, dude. They got all the tools, all the little toys. So it's pretty cool that they've taken ownership of that, and they realize how important it is. And to be honest, like a lot of these elder students, they're going to come out of there and they're going to be ready for, whatever. If they want to go into this business, they're going to have like real tangible experience that they can point to and be like, I was a part of this in high school. That's huge for getting off the ground.
No doubt. Well, speaking of getting off the ground, Xavier Musketeers have not been able to really get on the ground or on the floor here for, I don't know, I feel like it's been almost 3 weeks. What do we have, 14 days, 12, 14, 15 days?
Friday night will be 19 days since their last game.
Insane. So
crazy.
Supposed to play. And go ahead.
It's a little bit touch and go right now. So, Xavier, a few hours ago, they sent out their pregame media notes. They were going to have a press conference with Travis Steele tomorrow. So by that indication, it makes it seem like they're confident that they're going to go there and play. But earlier today, it was announced that Butler and UConn played last night on Tuesday night, and one of the officials in that game tested positive after the game. So UConn has already postponed their next 2 games, I think against Villanova and I forget the other one. But basically from the people that I've spoken to, it sounds like this is a product of where you live, because the local health boards and departments have a say in this. And my understanding is that the reason that UConn already had to postpone, even without having anyone within their program test positive, is because of local health officials and the rules that they have in place. So I think that Butler and Indiana, I think they're a little bit more, I don't want to say relaxed, but I just think that they have some different policies that are going to allow this game to happen on Friday night, which is good news for Xavier fans, because as we mentioned, man, it's felt like just longest time since they've played a basketball game. It's crazy.
And we've got so many new faces. It's almost like I have to get back on the app and look back at the team roster just so I can remember who everybody is.
Exactly.
It's insane. So speaking of everybody, hopefully they do play, number one. Obviously Adam, Schmidt, if it's safe, hopefully they play. I know where you're coming from. Know what your next thing you're going to say is. As long as it's safe, I hope they play. That being said, tell me about Kiki. He's had 2 weeks now, over almost 3 weeks to get back in. I'm not going to say he was in bad graces because Steele never really talks bad about him. But there's something going on there. Any idea if we're going to get to see this? He's a 12-point run in 30 seconds waiting to happen, and he's not playing basketball.
I know. It's one of the more confusing things that's emerged this season, I think, because we've already seen him at times this year. Through the first 3 games, he was their 3rd leading scorer. He essentially carried them in that Toledo game with 24 points. And, from what I've heard, he's struggling in practice. And this is the problem that I think that fans and people outside the program struggle to understand. It's that, they've seen him get hot, like you said, a 12-0 run all by himself. And, Travis has not done himself any favors by continuing to state that he's the best shooter in the program. Why aren't you playing the best shooter in the program? And it comes down to those two. It comes down to 2 things. It comes down to, number one, if you can't produce in practice, that creates this void of trust. Like if he can't trust you and you can't show that you can do this stuff in practice, it's going to make it hard for him to play you in the games. And then on top of it, when he has gotten in the games, he hasn't looked great recently. And I think part of it is, he's kind of moved further down that bench. And I think that's gotten in his head a little bit. And he may be a little gun shy, but he gets in the game and he makes unnecessary mistakes. And part of the problem this year is Xavier has depth. So like, as opposed to last year, they needed him to come into the game and it was, hey, Kiki, go in there, do your thing and score the basketball. And that's really all he had to worry about, because he knew that there was a short bench. He knew that even if he made some mistakes, he was going to get the opportunity to play through those. That's not the case this year, because you got guys like Adam Kunkel and Dwan Odom and Colby Jones and, CJ Wilcher's starting to get a little bit more playing time. So it's like, if you continue to make the same mistakes this year, you're not going to have the opportunity to play through those. And I think that's what he's struggling with right now. But I do know this from people that I've talked to within the program. I can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but it sounds like he is committed to sort of seeing this through and trying to play his way out of this slump. So that's obviously good news. Because, I mean, with a guy like this, you worry about that transfer portal.
Oh, it scares me to death, because the potential this kid has, and you see it. You've seen it. You saw it. We all saw it last year. The talent level is through the roof. I know Xavier. Mac was always about it. Steele always talks about it. You don't play in practice, you ain't gonna play in the game, and you see it happening. Especially like you said, since they've gotten Kunkel has come on. They've allowed Kunkel before Ben Stanley went out. They're just constantly bringing guys into these games. Yep. And what's his name? Nate Johnson, who the guy shot 50% in a game and his 3-point percentage went down. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but real quick, let me ask you some stuff about Kunkel. This kid seems like a super good kid. Can definitely shoot the ball. At first, I thought he was a little slow on defense, and the more I watch him, he's a pretty good defender, not necessarily on the ball, more off the ball, where he's at. You see him sneak rebounds and constantly getting tips underneath the basket on shots. I kind of like the way this kid plays all around.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And I think, you look at him and physically he has some work to do. He needs to pack some muscle onto that frame. But you think about it like this: he's coming in and he's playing in the Big East, dude. Like, he was at Belmont, okay? Belmont to the Big East, it's a big leap. Like, the dudes are bigger, the dudes are faster, they're more physical. That in and of itself means he's going to need some time to sort of figure this out. And I think the speed with which he's shown that he is figuring it out is a huge, huge benefit for this team, because this is a guy that they don't just have this year, they have him next year and the year after. So he's going to be a huge, important part of this going forward, because, I can see you doing the math in your head right now, Chris. This is a free year this year. So he came in, he was going to redshirt this year, and then he was going to have 2 years of eligibility left anyway. But this year is a free year for everyone on the roster. So he gets to play this year, and he still has 2 more years after this. So he's going to be a good one. Once he spends some time in the weight room, he gets more familiar with the system. And one of the things I really like about him, and I think is a big reason why he's earned the playing time that he has thus far, is he's smart. He's intelligent out there on the floor. He knows spots. He knows where to be. You saw it on that game winner that Colby Jones hit against Providence. Like, that was a design play for him to get downhill, dribble handoff off of the screen. And he wanted to get Kunkel a shot, a game winner and another game winner in a Big East game. And he had the wherewithal to know that, hey, it's not here. I'm going to kick it out to Paul Scruggs. So it's like, he knows how to make the right plays, and that's going to benefit this team greatly, I think.
So while we're on this subject here, explain to us how this free year. I keep hearing the free year, but it still gets me. It still gets me because, like, so if you're a senior and you graduate, you still got to be taking classes at Xavier if you want to come back, or is there only certain players that get this free year? How's this work?
So this is all winter student athletes. So it doesn't even apply just to basketball. Because of the pandemic, the NCAA granted this a 1 year of free eligibility. So it doesn't count against your total for your career. So for instance, Xavier has Paul Scruggs, Jason Carter, Brian Griffin, and Nate Johnson are all seniors on the roster this year. They would all technically be eligible to come back next year and play another year. I think, I'm not positive on this, but I think you're right. I think they would have to continue to take some sort of a class, even if they've graduated, or do something academically to maintain their eligibility, because you still have to be academically eligible to play. But yeah, and you know, even furthermore, you think about it like this. With the free year of eligibility, Zach Freemantle is technically a freshman this year, not a sophomore.
That's insane. That
right?
might be the thing to come out of this, thinking about
now,
that.
You know, who knows?
Same with Kiki Tandy, though.
Same with Kiki, yeah. Now, who knows who's going to take advantage of this and, you know, how it's going to play out down the road. But like, you start to think about it like this, I could see a real scenario where guys like Nate Johnson or Brian Griffin, maybe they want to come back and play again next year, get another year. I think Paul Scruggs is probably not going to be a guy who takes advantage of it. Maybe Jason Carter would. I don't know what his future has in store, if he's, you know, trying to go get paid overseas or continue his basketball career in some fashion. But it's crazy to think that, you know, everyone on the roster right now this year does not count against their total eligibility.
So does that mean that even though we lost Ben Stanley this year due to ACL, we still could possibly have him for 2 more years?
Correct. Because
this is crazy. I'm learning all kinds. See, look, I don't pay attention to all this stuff.
Well,
this is
Ben's case is unique on multiple levels, because not only was this a free year for him when he became eligible, but because of the fact that now he's injured, it wouldn't count against him, you know, regardless. Yeah. So he was still, my understanding is he's still going to have 2 years of eligibility left going forward if he chooses to use them both. So
what does this do to recruiting? Because you're planning on 4 or 5 guys leaving your program next year. Who knows? Possibly others. I mean, you got guys like Deontay Miles that aren't seeing, you know, any time at all. You got tons of guys like that. What's his name? Ramsey. I don't even know if he even shows up to games anymore. But we've got some big guys that don't really play. They could leave. Anybody could leave to the transfer portal. You never know how that's going to go. But how's that going to affect all these recruits? You're still recruiting seniors in high school to come play for you next year. You only got so many roster spots.
It's going to be a little bit of the wild, wild west, because even on top of that, the NCAA is going to approve this one-time transfer rule. So I don't know if you've heard about this or if you've seen this circulating, but basically, you know, under normal circumstances, when you transfer, you have to apply for a waiver to earn immediate eligibility. Well, they're going to do away with that and make a one-time transfer rule where you don't have to sit out. You can just jump from one program to the next and get plugged right in without having to wait. So that's coming in the pipeline too. All these things are going to complicate things immensely. And the recruiting thing, I think it's going to be a wait and see, because you're going to have guys, high school guys, who are being recruited by a program who aren't going to commit because they want to see what happens with the roster. Like if you're a guard and Xavier's recruiting you, and you're going to want to see, hey, is Paul Scruggs coming back? Who else has taken advantage of this extra year of eligibility? Am I going to slide into a situation where I have to sit and wait a year? So I think what it's going to do is it's going to delay a lot of decisions. But furthermore, like the NCAA is also going to extend a scholarship relief. So ordinarily you get 13 scholarships to play with. Well, because of this, you're going to be able to surpass that 13 number based on how many guys take advantage of this extra year of eligibility. So you're going to have some more scholarships if guys do choose to take advantage of it. But yeah, there's going to be transfers. There's going to be it's going to be crazy, man. It's going to be interesting to see how it's all navigated and played out.
It's going to be like, that's going to be like NBA free agency. Like there's going to be people that get hung out to dry because like teams or high school players, like you were saying, because you have to wait until those guys make a decision. And it might be too late to grab a recruit if whoever has an opportunity to come back that wouldn't normally, if they want to come back, you're not going to say, sorry, you're out of here because I'm bringing in this freshman probably.
It also makes it complicated because when these coaches go out and recruit and they sit down with these kids and their families, a popular topic of conversation is, hey, what's the playing time going to look like? Mm-hmm. Because of this, they're not going to have great answers to that question because they don't know what the roster is going to look like depending on, hey, this guy's going to take an extra year or, that like there are just unanswered questions that they're going to have to deal with. So it's going to add a wrinkle to answer your question.
Is the waiver is the transfer thing, is that just for like this year, like between these next two seasons, or is that as long as guys are in school?
So it's going to be a one-time only. So like, for instance, we're talking hypothetical here. You mentioned Deontay Miles or Daniel Ramsey. I don't know that either one of them want to transfer, but let's just say Deontay wanted to transfer. Well, if he transfers from Xavier to another place, he takes advantage of that one-time transfer rule and he doesn't have to sit out. If he wants to transfer again, then he has to sit out. But this is going forward like legislation in the NCAA bylaws. So it's not like a 1 or 2 year deal. This is going to be the standard going forward for forever unless they overturn it or they change it.
To be honest, it really is a good rule. I mean, I've heard some things about this over the last little while, but it's a good rule. Some of these kids, you kind of feel bad for them in some cases, especially like you see guys like Ben Stanley and Adam Kunkel who are sitting out, and the NCAA is making a decision on if you're going to be allowed to play. They don't really know who you are or what's going on anyway. And you're waiting to get an opportunity. You have an opportunity and you have to wait for something like that. I think it's good for some of these kids. It's going to be tough, but the amount of money these kids make and aren't making, I kind of like them having a little bit of power.
I do too. And the one, like, to play devil's advocate, I think it may be not a death sentence, but it's going to negatively impact those mid-majors, because I think what's going to happen is every year, the best mid-major players are just going to get poached. They're just going to, hey, I had a great year, I'm going to go to this program. And to an extent, that sort of already happens. But I think that now that it's like guys don't have to file for a waiver to go play somewhere else, I think it's just going to make it easier for those guys to hit the road and say, you know what? So I think the mid-major coaches they have a different perspective on this whole thing. But I agree with you. Like, if you're a young man or a young woman and you're playing at a program and it doesn't work out and you want to change a scenery or you want a new opportunity, like, you shouldn't have to get approval from the NCAA to go do what you want to do. Like, I agree with you in that sense completely.
It's too bad UC is going to start losing a lot of their better players here as a mid-major. It's tough for Coach Brandon. I feel bad. They do feel bad.
Could you imagine if anybody transferred from Xavier to UC or the other way around?
I've got friends who are diehard UC fans who text me all the time about, hey, is Kiki transferring? Because UC wants him, or UC fans at least want him. So it would be a wild dynamic if that played out.
That would be something different. Feel bad for that kid. I would feel bad for that kid. I don't have a problem with it. If one of our guys leaves the UC, I don't know why you want to leave to go to a worse team. And if we're picking somebody up from UC, well, then obviously he was the best player on their team probably. And so I had no problem with it, but I feel bad for the kid because there's going to be a lot of kids. I mean, those schools are just a couple miles apart. Those parties are attended by both.
It would be a tough scene, you know?
Oh, Lordy. All right. On that note, well, not on that note, but on a different note, I want to talk about this kid, Colby Jones. All right. So now that I realize that he's still going to be a freshman next year, that's just going to be insane because he already seems like he's playing like a junior. You know what I mean? He doesn't make he makes some mistakes, but he is what's the like silky smooth, I want to call it. That kid is going to be a star on this team. Is this a kid that could leave in a couple years to try to go make money somewhere, or is he somebody that you see sticking around here for a while?
I see him sticking around. And one of the things that I learned about him recently, I wrote a story about him not too long ago. Actually, it's kind of funny that it played out this way, but like my story went up a few days before he hit the game winner against Providence. It was after he had his career high against St. John's, but like I didn't know how important academics were to him. You know, a lot of times these high profile basketball guys come in and you just assume that they're here to play basketball. But like when I talked to Travis Steele about him, like the academic piece was super important to him. Like he wanted to go somewhere that had good basketball and good academics. And that's ultimately one of the reasons why he picked Xavier. So you hear that. And obviously, you know, things can change. These kids are young and, you know, I remember when I was that age and like my mind changed all the time, but I see him more as a 4-year guy, as a guy who wants to get his degree. So because of that, I'd be inclined to think he's going to be around for the long haul, but I couldn't agree more with you about him, man. Like you watch him play and he, you know, I think back to last year, you know, sometimes you'd watch Fremantle and you'd watch Kiki and it'd be like, man, they look like freshmen a lot of times. Like I haven't gotten that feeling from Colby Jones. Like you said, he's made some mistakes but for the most part, dude, like he does not play or look like a freshman out there. He looks like he belongs already. He looks comfortable. And you said silky smooth, like the coaching staff calls him the smooth operator. So like you're right on the money with that reference.
He's that kid he's going to be a ton of fun. My son, Paul Scruggs. It was Tyreek Jones, and then it was Paul Scruggs, but he's starting to talk about Colby Jones a little bit every time we get to see him. So he's going to be a lot of little kids' favorite players. There's no doubt about it. When he hit that shot, and you find out what happened with his grandpa and all this stuff like that, I'm going to tell you right now, like cold chills right now. I'll be the first one to tell you, I had a little tear in my eye, man. That was a special moment for a special kid, and it's he's going to be special for this program.
Yeah, man. Couldn't agree more. And that was one of those things where like none of us knew that had happened or that's what he was going through. It was a situation where you watched him hit that shot and run down to the other end of the court. And I was sitting in a little room in Centos. It's where I do our post-game Zoom interviews. So it's quiet and I can hear everything. And I saw the clip on Twitter of his game winner. And it looked to me like he got emotional after he hit it. So I asked him that in the post-game press conference. I was like, hey, man, you know, it looked like you got emotional after that. And he said that. And I was just like, oh, my God, like,
holy cow,
that's terrible. But what a fitting tribute for your grandfather. Like, you know, he'll have that memory for the rest of his life. That's pretty cool.
No doubt about it.
And what a great thing for a writer to be able to go to the story.
I mean, you know, you obviously you sympathize with the situation and, you know, you don't want anyone to lose someone they love, but like in terms of like stories, that's the top of the list, man. Like for him to do that in that situation with everything he went through leading up to that game, like it made for a pretty remarkable story.
Definitely. Zach Fremantle and Jason Carter. So I want to go. I just got a couple. I could sit here and do this all day because I could talk about every single kid on the team. But do you see the free mantle of the first 5 games, 6 games, or do you see now that we're in the Big East, maybe Fremantle, kind of falls off, but I mean, he's still going to be good. But he had a couple games there, where he wasn't. He was still in the games and he was still doing things without the ball, but he wasn't scoring as much. And even the rebounds were still there. But are we going to see more of that when we get into the Big East? Do you think?
I think it's so weird because like you think about the Oklahoma game and like he started that game 7 for 7. He was on fire. He did everything right in that game. And then they get hit with that COVID-19 test and they have to pause. And he comes back and Big East play starts. And honestly, I think what happened was I think he pressed a little bit. I think he thought, you know what, like everyone's talking about me. Maybe I've been reading my press clippings a little bit. And he got into Big East play and he's hit a little bit of a roadblock here. There's no way around it. You watch him play, you look at the stats recently, and he has struggled a little bit. And honestly, I think the biggest thing with him is he's got to get off to a good start. Like a lot of times in these games, he misses some shots early. Maybe he gets a few foul calls that don't go his way, and he gets in his head about it. Like he needs to, if he can find a way to just settle himself down and stay in the game mentally when he gets off to a bad start, I think that's going to translate to him getting back to himself a little bit because, you look at his best performances this year and they've been games where he's gotten off to good starts and he hasn't been able to do that in the Big East. But I kind of feel like Travis feels about him. Like he has all these skills. He's super talented. He still has a long way to go defensively, but he'll be fine. I think, and maybe this time away from the court has served him well. We'll see. But yeah, if this team's going to do anything worthwhile this year, he's a guy that they need desperately.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jason Carter is the best thing that ever happened to him for postponed games. So everybody stops talking about him on Twitter or whatever Travis was getting all pissed off about.
Yeah, man. People have this like – strange feelings about Jason Carter, man. It's wild to watch it play out on social media the way it does because you watch him and most of the time he's kind of easy to miss. I don't know if you guys have this experience when you watch Xavier games, but like a lot of times he doesn't do anything that really jumps out, and I think because of that, when he makes mistakes, they really are glaring. It's like, because a prime example is when for the crosstown shootout this year, Travis Steele told him going into that game, I'm going to put you on Chris Vogt, and I don't want Chris Vogt to get a single rebound. And that was Jason Carter's job in that game. And it's like you watch him play and you see the things that he can do. And he does the things that like no one else really wants to do. And that's why I think he's such an important player to this team. And I don't really understand the hate that he gets because like you need guys like that. If you guys have both played sports, I'm sure you need guys who are willing to like roll up their sleeves and do that, like the dirty shit that no one else wants to do. Like that's Jason Carter. And, he doesn't have the prettiest game. He's not going to stuff the box score with huge numbers, although he has a couple times this year. But he's just solid, I think. I don't know what your guys' opinions are about him, but
I love the kid, right? So I don't get on social media. I don't have a Facebook. I don't have, I do have Twitter and I get on there maybe, twice a week and kind of flow through things, but I don't see everything that was going on when all this happened, but I got a couple text groups during games that I'm back and forth in that we're all watching the game. And there's one guy that just, constantly want to say something about him, but I'll tell you what, he is just like you said, he can be passive. He can be too passive sometimes.
Yeah.
But then He can be too aggressive sometimes too. Sudden, it's like Travis must tell him, "Hey, take it to the basket. Just when you this is you're shooting on this. Like this play is for you. You're shooting." And he throws up something goofy, and then he'll pass up 3 wide open threes in a row to try to make to get somebody a better shot. Anyway, I like the kid. I feel bad for him. I hope he continues to give us 10 to 12 rebounds. I don't care if he scores.
Well, one of the weird things, maybe it's not weird, but you think about it from his perspective. He came to Xavier from Ohio University, where he was their leading scorer and averaged almost 17 points a game. And now that has to feel so far away for him. Like, that's not who he is anymore at Xavier. So I think part of his issue has been trying to adjust to this new role that he's taken on here. And I think it's probably taken him longer than he would have liked to sort of figure it out. But I still think he's going to be an important part of what this team is and what they can become. Yeah, I know he can be frustrating at times with some of his mistakes and things like that. But it's like
every kid makes mistakes, man. They're college kids. Every kid is out there making mistakes. For some reason, Jason Carter gets blown up for
it. Yeah, that's
man,
why
they actually
go ahead.
They did that on his birthday too. I don't know if you noticed that, but the game when he was getting the most hate, it was like after the game, I think Travis had to remind people. He sent out like a "Hey, happy birthday" to Jason, and it was like, I mean, just talk about bad timing.
Oh man.
No, that's why a kid like that gets to see the floor, because like you said, his job and really hard for young people to make that adjustment, especially if you were a scorer, and most guys playing at that level were, probably averaging 25 a game in high school. And then they got to come in. I think a lot of kids have that, have to make that adjustment. But like you said, like in the UC game, your job is to make sure Chris Vogt gets 0 rebounds. That doesn't mean you have to get 10 or 12 rebounds. That just means he doesn't get any. And that's, like you said, he might not stand out all the time, or he might not, you might look at the stat sheet after the game and he plays 25 minutes and has two points and 2 rebounds. But if he did his job and Chris Vogt got 1 rebound, then you did your job. And that has a way bigger impact on the game than a lot of people realize. So, but I know that's, really hard for younger people to adjust to, and to understand, like, okay, I'm not doing anything it doesn't look like I'm doing anything, but I know, and the coaching staff knows when he's doing his job, it might not look like he's not giving you 20 points, but he's getting you extra possessions, and he's, doing other little things that, not everybody pays close attention to.
Yeah,
Adam's gonna get some Jason Carter video, take it to the Oak Hills JV practice next week with his coaching. Start playing it now.
Play like this, guys. No, I think he's 4th in the Big East in rebounding right now. So like, for as many mistakes and things like that people like to get on him for, like, he does find a way to impact the game. It just might not be like the sexiest, most efficient all the time, but it is what it is. You need guys like that.
I kind of feel bad for guys like that, because like you said, the story about him in the UC game, right? So nobody's in on these meetings. Nobody knows what these guys' jobs are while they're on the court, or what Travis's game plan is for any given day. And yet they just feel like it's okay for them to jump on whatever it is, the tweet box, and tell people that, decide that they're a better coach than anybody in the world, and that they're going to start messing around with some 20-year-old. That's just, dude, that's a story for a whole nother world. I hate that more than anything.
It's become so easy for people to have a voice and have an opinion and share that with someone, when, like, I don't know. Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, I could talk about this all day. I've recently deleted my Facebook. I'm trying very hard to spend less time on Twitter this year. But
the thing that sucks for you though is that's a big part Twitter's big for
Yeah.
writers and journalists and people like that. In fact, that's the only reason I'm on Twitter, is to follow beat reporters and analysts and people like that, because they're the people that I actually want to hear from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever clicked on the little comment thing underneath somebody's story to even care what every single other person has to say. I didn't.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, I didn't click on Adam's tweet, or on your tweet, to see what your average Tom, Dick, and Harry has to say about it. I could care less. I looked at it because I want to know what the heck you had to say about it. So it makes no sense to me. Facebook thing, all this stuff makes no sense. Get off of it, everybody else, and let the professionals take care of it. All right.
Yeah, man. I wish I didn't have to read that stuff. It's unfortunately it's a part of the job. It's one I wish I didn't have to rely on so heavily, but it's like you said, man. I got to get people to click on my stories, so I got to be on there.
Worst comment tweet thing back at you've ever had. I mean, if it's and by worst, I mean, obviously you would just laugh at it. I feel like you've got a pretty good sense of humor about it. You're not taking any of that stuff personally. So worst thing somebody's ever said to you on the tweet box.
Oh, it's a story. When I was covering high school sports, this is like, you have those moments where it's like, there are things we all regret. And I put out a tweet about something, and in hindsight, I probably should have thought it through more, but like, I had a solid source. I had multiple sources actually. And I put something out there, and people didn't take too kindly to it. And it was the thing where I got beat up like for 10 solid hours. I had people sending me hate, and just like, and that's my thing. It's like, I wish that those people didn't have such easy access to get under my skin, because it's like, why are we in a situation where complete strangers can ruin my day, man? Like, I don't like that aspect of this job at all, because it's like, people, if they have something to say, now they have a way to say it. And honestly, like, just to be frank with you guys, not everyone has earned the right to say stuff to me. Like, just because you have created a Twitter account doesn't mean you've earned the right to say dumb shit to me.
Nobody has earned that right. That's the whole thing. I don't understand. Who are you to? Never mind. Yes, continue.
It's aggravating.
But Adam, you gotta let your opinion about St. Xavier football go sometimes, though. All right, we gotta think about that. All right.
You know what?
No, I hear you.
When you hold records at Elder, I feel like you probably just feel untouchable and just let it fall. Your response should always just be, when you hold a high school football record at a prominent Division I school, then what do they call it? At me. Then you can at me.
Exactly. More importantly, a record that I'm fairly confident no one will ever touch.
No chance. For those of you that haven't seen Adam on the show before, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let you tell them your Elder high school record. It's probably my favorite stat I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, so I played fullback at Elder my senior year. And granted, this was like early 2000s, 2003, 2004, 2005, when they used to run a more traditional offense. So the fullback was more of like a glorified offensive lineman. And I finished my senior year with negative rushing, negative receiving yards, and I scored a touchdown. I'm the only person in Elder history to do that. So just to give you the details, I had a minus 4-yard loss against Lakewood St. Ed's on a run. And then against Indianapolis Bishop Chatard, I caught a pass for negative 1 yard. And then West High, I had a 1-yard rushing touchdown. So my final season stats were negative 3 yards rushing, negative 1 yard receiving, and 1 rushing touchdown.
That is so classic. I absolutely love
it. Never to be duplicated.
I blame it on who was the quarterback when you were there?
So I had Craig Carey my junior year, and then
Oh,
guys are my senior year.
Collins.
Both of those guys.
Collins, did you say you played basketball with both of those guys?
No, I said I blame it on both of those guys, but I did
Blame
play
it on-
basketball against Craig Carey last year.
Yeah, he played.
At the
he
Sports
played,
Mall League?
Didn't he play down at Holy Family?
He played
with
in he and his brothers, which that's the most athletic family I've ever seen anywhere.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
ridiculous.
They got a team up at the St. Teresa League, the 3-on-3 league that I play at St. Teresa in the summer.
Nice.
I can't guard anybody, and it's awful, but they're incredible. Anyway, my last Xavier question for you is, so they've missed all this time. Hopefully they'll get to play this game against Butler, but now they've got, I can't remember, you mentioned it in your last article a few days ago. Is it like 40 something days and they've got to play? It would be like 2 point. I think I wrote it down actually. Like they have to play a game like every 2.7 days or something like that to get them all in. Right. And to make it, including making the ones up that they missed.
Correct. So were you done?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, that's probably not realistic right before they get to the Big East tournament. So they're going to have to go without some games, right? I mean, do you have any idea what the plan's going to be going for the rest of this regular season?
Yeah, I know from talking to people at the Big East, I know that they are still looking at potential openings in the schedule. And part of the problem with the amount of games that they have to play and the amount of time left that they have to get them in is to make up some of these games. Like other Big East teams are going to have to get unlucky, basically. You know, Butler had a false positive test last week. Had it not been a false positive, had it been a full-blown shutdown for the Bulldogs, like that would have been a situation where Butler's next upcoming opponents would have been able to get rescheduled and play against Xavier. So it's like they're going to, after Friday, they're going to have 14 Big East games left and 39 days to play them in. That's not going to happen. And, you know, you take into consideration the fact that they would have to avoid another shutdown themselves, Xavier, and their opponents would have to avoid shutdown. So I think realistically, like I'm thinking maybe 8 more games. Like they'll be lucky if they can get to 20 games in the regular season. So and if you read my last article, like what that does is it creates a lot of pressure on those next 8 games, because when you're fortunate enough to get on the floor and play a game, like you need to take care of business and win it, because you don't have many opportunities left to prove that you're an NCAA tournament team. It's just, to me, it makes the next month and a half just pressure packed already.
I mean, would it make sense to play as many games as you can until like a week or two, maybe like 2 weeks before the Big East tournament's supposed to start? Shut everybody down, make everybody quarantine so you can make sure that everybody's going into that Big East tournament healthy. Like maybe just cancel the last week or 3 games or something like that, so everybody can just kind of make sure they're good entering the Big East tournament, because that's the even bigger thing, right? And then go use the seeding by however many games everybody got in. It is, you know, whatever. If you played 5 Big East games, tough, you know, that's where you are. But I don't know. It just seems like, and not just the Big East, it kind of seems like everybody might think about doing something like that, because it's going to be a bigger deal when you know, if conference tournaments get shut down because of the whole thing, then you're talking about how are you going to determine who gets into the NCAA tournament and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't know exactly how they're going to approach it. I think that they are going to have to do something along those lines, because even if you draw it out past that, so let's say that they are able to play the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden and, you know, it all goes off without a hitch. Well, if you make the NCAA tournament, your team and your coaches and your whole tier 1 group, your travel group, they have to test negative 7 days in a row to be able to play in the NCAA tournament. I've even seen people sort of hypothesizing that maybe it's not even the smartest thing to play the conference tournament, because you run the risk of maybe one of the Big East teams that's a surefire lock for the NCAA tournament. Maybe they go play at Madison Square Garden, and maybe they run into a few positive tests, and that takes them out of the NCAA. Like, it's just, to me, I'm having a hard time with this myself, even thinking about it, because let's say you get into the NCAA tournament and you pass those 7 tests. What happens if you have a positive during the tournament? Like, I just listened to an interview with Jeff Goodman had, what's his name? Dan Gavitt, the NCAA senior vice president for men's basketball. And he was basically, they asked him this question, and he was like, well, we're not going to pause the tournament if a team or a star player tests positive. Mm. So when you hear that, it just, to me, it's like, it's crazy right now, but the next 2 months are going to be crazier.
Yeah. You ain't kidding there, man. To think about like I don't know, I would say one of the blue bloods, but none of them seem to be able to win a game anymore.
Yeah, they won't be there this year.
Yeah. So take whoever you want, a top 10 team, and take Villanova, and all of a sudden they go down and they're number 1 seed, and something happens, in the Big East tournament. They would have been a number 1 seed, and now all of a sudden they can't even play. Now you got another 15 or 16 seed going through. I mean, this is going to be the craziest. This is going to be the craziest year for college basketball conference tournaments I've ever seen in my life.
Ever, yeah. It's going to be wild, man. I'm holding my breath a little bit, because way that this has been going so far, it's just hard to imagine that there's going to be a finished product at the end of all this. Like, I'm hopeful that there will be, but I'm also like very skeptical that it's going to work out the way that they hope that it will. I'm working on like a big story about this season, and just like how crazy it is from all these different avenues and all these different angles, and like all the things that all these programs have to worry about. And it's going to be probably the most memorable season in the history of college basketball because of all this. And, I hope that we can have an NCAA tournament and that a team gets crowned national champion. But like, part of me is skeptical, man. And, we're going to.
It's a lot like, you see the NBA, right? They did the bubble. It worked.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball, nobody thought that was going to make it, but it did. They got to the end. They got the World Series in. Over. The NFL, I mean, it's not 100% for sure in 2 weeks the Super Bowl will be going, but at this point in time, nobody really thought that was, in the beginning, it was skepticism with that. Yep. The only thing that worries me is this is not a professional league. I mean, it is technically, I guess, if you really think about it, the way these kids are. But I mean, it's not a professional league that has that backing. There's a lot of teams involved in this.
68.
Exactly. There's a lot of teams that would be involved in this, as opposed to the 20 or whatever they took to the bubble and playing 30 in baseball and football. So that is what makes me think this is going to be. And
even the referees. Like the referees can test and mess this all up. Like, there are so many variables, man. It's
if it goes to the national championship game and some referee that did one of the Final Four games gets it, and that team can't play, and they crown somebody the national champion because that team couldn't play, that he better go into hiding. He better don't come back. Go to Aruba, live on a boat, don't ever come out.
Delete your social media, man. Right.
All over again.
Unless it's Xavier that's the one that gets crowned national champion because of that, then totally fine.
Yeah, we'll give him a pass then.
Yeah. No doubt. All right, Adam, man, we've taken up way more time than I had wanted to with you. I feel bad. I know it's late at night. I could do this for another hour, and I don't want to do that to you. I'm sure you got stuff to do tomorrow. You got the.
We'll have another episode. That's what we'll do.
That sounds good.
We'll come back in a couple months.
I like it. I like that. That sounds good. Maybe right before the tournament or after, somewhere around the tournament time. We'll try to lock you down for another show.
I like that, man. I always like talking to you guys. So I appreciate you having me on as always.
Heck yeah, man. We really appreciate it as well. Hey, one more thing before you go. So thing on the podcast for us to do every week, we do a Mount Rushmore. All right. This week is best baseball movies of all time. Give me your 4 best baseball movies.
All right. Bull Durham. I mean, like
3 on the spot.
It's gonna be weird because like I feel like Kevin Costner's gonna be in a couple of them. Like
he's in every baseball movie.
He is.
I love For Love of the Game, but I don't think I can put that on my Mount Rushmore. What did I say? I love Rookie of the Year, man. Like
Garden Hoser,
you're in. So what do we got? We got Bull Durham. We got Field of Dreams. We got Rookie of the Year. I guess maybe I will throw For Love of the Game. Or no, hang on.
That's my thinking face too. That's how I think too.
No, there's what's the name of it? It's got Robert Redford. Is it 8 Men Out?
The Natural.
Oh no, The Natural.
The Natural. I love The Natural.
Yes.
I'll go with The Natural. For Love of the Game is a great movie, but it's also like it's a little too much of a love story for me. So
I gotta tell you, for doing that on the spot, he's got half of my
you guys have your own?
Yeah.
We that's what we do. The next thing after you get off, then we go through and we do our Mount Rushmore.
I don't get to hear yours.
Yeah, that's why I just go ahead, Adam. Tell them what yours is. We'll do it real quick.
All right. So my number 1 is The Natural, Field of Dreams, Bull Durham, and then I have all these movies listed, and I got to choose the last one because I was undecided. I'm gonna say
that's Adam move.
I'm gonna say, I don't know. I've got Pride of the Yankees. I got Major League, The Rookie. I love that movie.
Major League could have easily been on mine too.
He's good. I like the Jackie Robinson story, like the first one when he played himself. Moneyball, I really liked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say,
so many.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my 4th one is gonna be. I'm gonna say The Rookie.
The Rookie, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm taking
that.
I
love The Rookie, and you got the crazy thing about this is as I started looking at this, there's like 50 baseball movies out there, and all of them are pretty good. Now, some of them got spun off a little too far, right? Like you got Major League went a little too far. Angels in the Outfield. Apparently there's been like 4 of them now. The one with Ted Danza, or Tony Danza, that was great growing up. Rookie of the Year, like you said, one of my all-time favorites. I watched the hell out of that VHS.
I can't believe that I forgot The Sandlot, dude. Like this.
Oh yeah.
Sandlot that's on yours? Oh, I stole
absolutely. Sandlot number 2 on mine. That is the number 2 greatest baseball movie ever. Number 1 is Field of Dreams. That's my all-time favorite movie ever. So Field of Dreams number 1, Sandlot's number 2, Bull Durham's number 3, and then I did the same thing Adam did. I had a little list of some. So you guys, probably neither of you have ever seen it. The one that I ended up going with, there's 2. All right, so I didn't go with this one, but this is one of my.
You shouldn't have held on for this, Adam.
Damn Yankees! Damn Yankees! I don't know if you ever get a chance to go back to 1958. It's like a musical. It's the only musical I've ever watched multiple times, or even maybe the only musical I've ever watched. Damn Yankees! Awesome movie. The Pride of the Yankees.
Oh,
is the one that I'm going with, though, because Lou Gehrig is my all-time favorite baseball player, and the pride of the Yankees is one of the best bio stories, whatever you want to call it. Babe Ruth plays himself. It's fucking that's
yeah.
great. I love that.
That is cool. Yeah.
So those are going to be my 4. But Sandlot, you got to have Sandlot on there.
I forgot about Sandlot.
I know. I immediately as Adam was rattling his off, I was like, Sandlot. How did I forget Sandlot, dude? No, but that's cool. Next time I come on, you'll have to.
I'll hit you up beforehand.
Well, I guess I kind of do like the putting me on the spot, but like if you gave me some time to think about that, I could have probably pulled out a diamond in the rough, you know.
Adam, I don't know if you're like me and you have time you have like a whole week to think about it. You spend way too much time. You're looking up all kinds of stupid stuff that it's like, I just overthink everything. So I don't want to put you in that position, but we will let you know ahead of time what our topic is going to be that week.
Have you ever seen The Scout?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome baseball movie. And then
It is.
Brewster's Millions. I consider that a baseball movie.
Oh yeah, I would too. Yeah.
So those were 2 ones that I had down that I absolutely love, that crack me up when I watch them.
Yeah, that's a cool category. That's like baseball movies it's probably the hardest sports category to narrow down into 4, I think.
Yeah, because baseball movies are the best sports movies. I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you sticking around for one more part, brother. That's awesome, dude.
It was fun. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. I'll let you know next time, so you be ready. You be ready for it, and I'll be watching more Elder football games, see if we get any fullbacks with negative yards.
Oh yeah.
They better not.
Are you might be the last fullback ever at Elder. they don't use them anymore.
I know. It's a true dying breed for the Panthers. It's a little sad, but you know, I think Doug had to evolve the offense with the times, you know?
Yeah.
Well, he did it right. He started to do it right when his boy was there, and now his boys giving it a go for the old NFL. So good for him.
Yep.
Good for him.
All right, fellas.
Good. We'll talk to you later, Adam. Thanks a lot.
Take care. You guys have a good night.
You too.
You too. Adam Baum, ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell you what, I could sit and talk to that guy for hours.
Yeah. Yep. He's fun to talk to. I hope Bobby Nightingale listened to that, because since you said that Adam Baum was by far your favorite beat reporter from the Inquirer.
Hey, listen. I love Bobby, but he's a close second. It is what I tell him to his face. I'm not pulling punches here.
It's about Xavier. It's not about Bobby or Adam. It's about Xavier basketball.
It's about Xavier basketball. That's what it's about. And there's like 500 Reds beat writers, so I can't. You know, he's my favorite of the Reds beat writers
for sure,
by far.
Yeah,
but it's close second to Adam. The other thing that tips him up, you know, being an Elder grad, kind of
that helps
up there. You know
Absolutely.
What I mean?
It's fun to talk Elder sports and Xavier basketball and baseball movies with Adam Baum. So we thank him for joining us. I think we already gave our Mount Rushmores. You want to dive a little bit further into it, or you want to just move right on, or what?
I think we've done it. I say we just move on and get into something else because we're pushing some time here. So let's push it, since we did the baseball movies. Mm-hmm. We would be remiss not to say something about who I believe is probably the greatest baseball player to ever play the game. Hank Aaron passes away. 2020 was a horrible year for baseball players dying. Hundreds. It felt like 100 baseball players died in 2020. Every week somebody was dying. Carlton. Did I kill Steve Carlton again? Who?
Tom Seaver.
Tom Seaver. I just did it again, didn't I? Man, I have killed Steve Carlton on this podcast like 10 times.
Sorry, Steve. We appreciate you listening, of course.
Oh gosh, I'm going to hear about that from him in the morning. Anyway, Tom Seaver, Joe Morgan, Bob Gibson. dearly departed of this section of this podcast has gone on for a while. So that, and now 2021, which I refuse to call it 2021 yet. We're still in 2020, and probably the biggest name. If you look at the biggest name in baseball, right? You have Babe Ruth, who was a phenom in his time. You have Jackie Robinson, just for what he did for the game, and the fact that he was a phenom as well.
Great, yeah.
But if you go and look, I mean, Hank Aaron held the home run record for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Or 31, I think it was, whatever it was. And he lost it to a guy, to people using steroids, right? It was all, steroid guy comes in and beats him. So that being said, it sucks to have to say Bonds is the home run king. To me, it will forever be Hank Aaron until somebody really does beat him. Maybe I feel that way. Maybe I don't. Maybe I shouldn't say that right off the bat, because that could go into our next conversation. But he was more than a home run hitter. He never hit 40 home runs in a season, mm-hmm. which is unbelievable to have hit as many as he did, to play as long as he did, and be as consistent as he was throughout. He was a career like 320 hitter or something. Do you have that? He hit.
No, but I think you're right. Yeah.
I figured you would have wrote all that down. So that and he all-time leader in total bases. If I'm not mistaken, when he retired, he was the all-time leader in total bases. And he had like 3 times the total bases as second place, or it was at least double. And you think about that, because he also when he retired, had the most doubles of all time and RBIs and every difficult stat you can imagine. And he won a couple of Gold Gloves, and he had a phenomenal arm. The things that man did consistently year in, year out for 19, 20 years is amazing. If you look at his numbers, there are only maybe two players that could compare all around numbers wise, maybe Willie Mays and Babe Ruth when it comes to numbers. Outside of those guys, there's nobody that has these kind of numbers all around, not just home runs and walks or something like that, but everything. So it was a tough couple of days for me. I sat on the couch. A few tears may or may not have fell out, is what it is. I could not stop watching things on him. To hear how he was with incoming players. They say he was so great with new players, just in the league in general, not just on the Braves, but in the league, would take players under his wing, especially black players, obviously, because that was a big part of his, it was still early on in the era of black players being able to even be in Major League Baseball. But it wasn't just him. It was all players. Like, you hear all players saying how great he was to them when they came in. And the fact that he came in and when he came in and played minor league baseball for the Indianapolis Clowns or whatever they were, or the Wisconsin Clowns, I don't know what they were. He was hitting with his hands the wrong way. He never played a baseball game until he got to the minors. Like, he never played a baseball game in high school. Never played a real baseball game. He just played sandlot ball. And unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't even think, I'm pretty sure I read that he didn't even finish high school.
No,
he left high school, and that's why he didn't play. So yeah, it's pretty incredible that he became one. And you said it in the beginning. I no argument from me. If you want to say that he's the greatest player ever, I can't give you anything why he wouldn't be. And you're right. So he all the numbers, the total bases, the RBIs, second all time in home runs, only to Josh Gibson. Number three in hits, all time.
Think about that.
That's my favorite. I think you're going to say the same thing. My favorite stat from seeing all this stuff is if Hank Aaron hit 0 home, he was the home run champion for a long time. If he hit 0 home runs in his career, he still would have had 3,000 hits. That's like my favorite thing. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Most known for being a home run hitter, but he was a 3,000 hit guy with no home runs.
The crazy thing is he's most known for that number, 744 or whatever, 745, whatever that number was, or when he broke Babe Ruth's 714 and he hit 715. He's most known for those numbers, right? You think of Hank Aaron, you think of those 700 numbers. From what I understand, when like players that played with him while he was playing, things like that, no one thought of him as like a 100% power guy. That wasn't who Hank Aaron was. Hank Aaron was just the guy he was Mike Trout. He was a guy that, he might lead the league in home runs or be in the top 5 in home runs, but I'm more scared of if he gets on base. I just want to try to get him out. He's gonna hit a home run here and there, but I just want to get him out. I don't want to give up a double or anything. And that's what he did. Like you said, 3,000 hits, even if you took every home run away. The guy, third. Would you say third all time in hits?
Third. Pete Rose, Ty Cobb, Hank Aaron. That's it.
You give me another home run hitter. Who Pete Rose, Ty Cobb, Hank Aaron. You just said that. Think about those. Pete Rose, Slappy Jawea, Mr. Slap it wherever he can find a ball to get through. Ty Cobb
hit like 10 career home runs. Pete Rose did.
Yeah, Ty Cobb, notoriously the most scrappiest player to ever play the game. Well, him and Pete Rose both. Mm-hmm. And who's third on that list? The home run leader.
That's right.
A guy who hits bombs. I'm telling you, he wasn't thought of as, at the end of his career, he broke the record, right? Now, he also played for 20 years, but he continued to hit 30 home runs every year. That's them. He never hit 40 home runs ever in his career. There's no power hitter that goes into the Hall of Fame as a power hitter that never hit 40 home runs. And that never happened. I can't even tell you, when you look at Hank Aaron's numbers, he might be the most underrated baseball player to ever live.
I agree with you. It's really just somewhere in the last 5 to 10 years that I really started like diving into more stuff about Hank Aaron and realizing, oh my gosh, this guy really probably is the best player ever, or very well might be, or should be talked about in the top 2 or 3, probably. People say Willie Mays, people say Babe Ruth, but Hank Aaron is every bit as good or better than both of those guys. And like you said, he had a couple, and he played, I think it was 21 or 22 seasons, because I'm pretty sure I saw that he was like a 21-time All-Star or something. And that's the biggest thing is, and some people even argue like, well, he's not that great, because people used to make the same argument for Pete Rose as the hit king. Like, well, he played 23 years or whatever. That's the reason he's the hit king. That's the reason he has the most hits. No, that's the most impressive part about it. You have to be great for that long.
Exactly. That's the worst argument anyone could make. The fact that I can play in Major League Baseball for 21 years already puts me as one of the greatest players ever.
And then to be one of the best in the league every one of those years, because you have to be to collect those numbers. If you can play 25 years and, not reach 3,000 hits or 3,000 strikeouts or whatever. You can do. A lot of guys play a long time and aren't in the Hall of Fame, but to be that great that long every year, be an all-star every year but one or whatever, and you play that long.
Year. The only year he didn't was his rookie year, and they say so. Back in those days, there was 2 all-star games in a season, before, in the middle of the season, and after the season, I want to say. And like they say that Hank Aaron probably played in 25 all-star games.
Dude, that's so crazy. And we've been talking about the how great he was and his numbers and everything. But you talk, and by the way, you were talking about what came to my mind when you were talking about how he never hit 40 home runs, but he was the home run king for a long time. One of the biggest things that people, especially his peers, when you see old interviews from those guys that saw him play every day, was they talked about how quick his wrists were. And that's what, and that might be the same thing with Trout too. Like, those guys are just really good hitters, and their wrists are so quick that they get their bat speed going around is you're going to collect home runs just from that, just from hitting the ball hard all the time. And so that came to my mind when you were talking about that. But the thing that I really wanted to get to was and we've said this for a few people in the last couple of years that have died and stuff, but nobody, and you go to Twitter and look at all the current guys and former guys that played baseball that talked about him and how much he meant to them individually and to the game. I mean, there are guys, who was it? Guy that played for the Reds for a couple years, hardly got any time. Then he just went to the Mariners last year. His name's escaping me, but he's like a fringe Major League Baseball player, but he posted a picture of him sitting down in a chair right next to Hank Aaron and them having a conversation in the last year or something like that. Like, this is a guy that's not a star, and Hank Aaron took time to sit there and talk baseball with him or whatever before a game or after a game or something like that. And that's the thing is people talk about how great a guy he was. And to go through, everybody knows, if you're a baseball fan, you know the story about when he was chasing Babe Ruth all that time, the stuff that he got death threats and I think he had a cross burnt on his front lawn or something by the KKK or something. There are stories about that people, threatened him and all kinds of stuff, got all kinds of really nasty mail because he was black and he was going to break a white man's record. And this was 1974 or whatever. And it was still, which is not that long ago, but still it's the stuff that he dealt with going through that, what should have been like the best thing in his life ever was one of the most difficult things in his life, I think, because he was dealing with that and there was so much pressure and so much, just stuff on his mind every day.
He was getting 300 or more death threats a day. The week coming up, going into him breaking this record, 300 letters a day. He still has them. Well, I guess technically he doesn't have them anymore, but he kept them forever. And there's pictures of him as an old man holding letters in front of a box. And he held that it meant something to him. It was not easy. And you hear stuff like that and with Jackie Robinson and with him and different stuff like that. And I could never imagine, not even fathom how strong-willed these guys were, and classy in the character of these guys to be able to get through that and still perform on an everyday basis.
And that's exactly why I brought that up. Yeah. To say like the biggest thing people talk about is his character. Like he's maybe the best player ever. And people talk just as much about his character as his accomplishments on the field. And I watched, I like you, I was watching a whole bunch of stuff, and he did, I don't know what year it was from. It was probably sometime in the last 10 years or so. It was an interview they did they set some kind of special thing up at the LBJ library at the University of Texas. It was a real nice thing. And there was like a studio audience and stuff. And somebody was interviewing him just, 30, 45 minutes, something like that. And they just talked about his career in baseball and all that kind of stuff. And he was just, and this is every interview really I've ever seen of him, just seemed like such a jovial, upbeat, positive guy, like constantly smiling, just seemed like so friendly and happy all the time. And I mean, he had a lot of reasons not to be, I mean, later in his life, I'm sure he did great and all that kind of stuff, but, and he's very celebrated and all that, but to go through what he went through when he broke the record and leading up to that. And I'm sure even for a while after that, it just, says a lot about the guy he was. And, like I said, just look at everything everybody posted, all current and former major league guys and people who were around baseball and around him in any capacity, just talk about how great of a guy he was. And that was the biggest thing.
If you ever get a chance to watch the call of his 715th home run, from the Dodgers side, Vin Scully, right? Vin Scully's call of the home run. Yeah. As his teammates are holding him and the crowd's going bananas. Vin Scully makes the call. I'm not going to quote it, but it was because I can't remember the exact words, but it makes you all the stuff that this guy was going through. And Vin Scully says, a black man has broken the record or whatever it was, and he's being cheered in the deep South. And it was just like, man, the fact that is one of the points that get brought up, but it was true. It was true. Yeah. And it's just to this day, I feel so bad because to be able to, as a baseball fan and a guy who just wanted to play baseball his whole life, I dreamed of the day that you hit 3,000 hits, that you get your 500th home run, and to be jogging around the bases or be like Wade Boggs and have 3,000 and 500 on the same, or no, not 500 on the same, but 3,000, your 3,000th hit be a home run, so you can jog around the base, all that kind of stuff, and just to feel that joy leading up to it when it happens. That dude didn't really get. I mean, he got to. I realize he got to, but not like me or you. He had to go. He had to hold on to a lot while going through it.
Can you imagine going to the ballpark in an incredibly open public place with thousands and thousands of people around you, like 5 minutes after reading a letter that somebody's going to kill you?
Yep. You know what I mean? I'm going to slit your throat. I'm going to do this to your parents or to your family, and like that's yeah, no way, dude. I'd be freaking out. I'd have security. My kids and everybody would be locked in a bunker. Like
I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking they didn't have to walk. They didn't have the fans walk through metal detectors when they went to the ballpark back then. So, I mean, I feel like anybody probably, and I think people probably carried guns regularly back then anyway, a lot more than they do now, because they're, the laws are seems maybe more stringent now. But just to think, like, anybody can just, from anywhere in the ballpark or even outside some of those ballparks, you had spaces where you could go watch the game from outside the ballpark. I mean, anybody could have had a gun and shot me while I was on the field at any moment because they didn't want me to do that. I mean, all those people that wanted him dead or didn't want him to break that record, I don't know that I would have had I'm sure I probably would not have had the courage to go out there and play every day. I would be like, it just isn't worth it. If it's going to be my life because of this, just not worth it. But he was like, I'm a baseball player. I'm just doing it.
Unbelievable. You'd be hard pressed to find an argument to tell me that somebody was a better all around baseball player than Hank Aaron. If you want to say somebody was the greatest player, there's only a couple you could make the argument with me on, but I'm pretty sure that I got more evidence towards Hank Aaron than anybody else out there. And Willie Mays was, by the way, Willie Mays' numbers are, I mean, he's like one notch under Hank Aaron in everything, or one notch just above. Like Willie Mays was phenomenal, but Hammer and Hank just had him by a little bit.
I'll tell you, if Ken Griffey Jr.'s prime would have extended another 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 years, maybe, could be talking about him too. The only guy I can think of that I think is clearly a better player than Hank Aaron is Curt Schilling. And that's just my opinion, that I think Curt Schilling's probably I think pretty easily the best player to ever play the game.
I will tell you, Curt Schilling might be the most clutch pitcher in baseball history. Regular seasons, he had good regular seasons. He had mediocre regular seasons. He's a Hall of Famer. Okay, Curt Schilling's a Hall of Famer.
Okay, I wanted to get
in
that
my
from
book.
you. Okay.
Curt Schilling's a Hall of Famer. I think Curt Schilling should be in the Hall of Fame for the teams he was on, what he was to the teams he was on, and the things he did on those teams. That being said, what a dingbat. I shouldn't say what a dingbat. I'm trying to not be negative and be nice to people I don't know and not talk about them. Look at me. I'm just like these tweet box guys that we're talking about with Adam Baum. I don't know the guy. I don't know him personally. But I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with him and just ask him why on all kinds of levels. Just why, what was coming up, what were you thinking here, why this, why that. Everybody I've ever heard that knew the guy says he's one of the nicest people in the world. And then all of a sudden, over like the last 5 years, something changed.
He seems a lot of times when he speaks, he seems like he's a little bit of a little surly, maybe a little bit of a curmudgeon sometimes. But so I think he's gotten more of a reputation, and that's what he was saying. So we're talking about the Hall of Fame. Nobody's being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, right? So that just came out in the last couple of days here. And in response to that, Curt Schilling, who pretty obviously feels like he is a Hall of Famer, said, I think next year is his last year on the regular ballot, correct?
Yep.
And then you go to the veterans ballot or whatever after that. But
Veterans Committee. Yep.
Veterans Committee. But he has said, you know what? If you haven't voted me in yet, forget it. Don't even put me on the ballot next year in my last year of eligibility. So he's, maybe that's an overreaction right now. And maybe in a couple months that wears off and he's like, all right, maybe I overreact a little bit. I'm a little offended because I think I should be in the Hall of Fame and I haven't been voted in.
No, he in his speech or in his letter, the open letter to baseball, it said, I don't think I'm a Hall of Famer.
Oh.
However, I don't know where the rest of it went, but he said he doesn't consider himself a Hall of Famer. But in the end, you're this close every single year. And it's like, oh, what are we doing? Verge, not verge. It's like, and for him, he has over the last 4 or 5 years has been getting flack from everybody, everywhere, every angle, every side gets on him for when he opens his mouth. And he feels that his mouth has kept him out of the Hall of Fame, not what he did on the field. And, in a way, do I kind of feel for the guy? I mean, a little bit, but at the same time, I hate to say don't open your mouth because that's not fair. Because you do what you want to do. There's some guys in the Hall of Fame that said way worse stuff than he ever did.
Yeah.
And did way worse things than he ever did. But, and baseball writers are old dingbats these days, it seems like. I mean, at some point in time, you're going to see Clemens, you're going to see Bonds, you're going to see McGuire, you're going to see these guys in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. I just don't know when. But I thought Curt Schilling would have been one that would make it, and this being his last year. I understand why he wrote the letter, but there was no point. There was no reason to do it. And to do it as an open letter, you obviously want the attention. To post the letter at the same time as you send it to him, you're begging for it, man. You're begging for attention now. That's the way I look at it. That's the way a lot of other people would look at it. If it's differently, then heavens to Betsy, let me know. But I'm just letting you know, Curt, when you watch this, that's how the world sees it, man. And I know you don't care how the world sees anything, obviously, by your other comments that you make. So.
Yeah, I this letter, and I shouldn't probably even be talking about this because I have not read the entire thing. I've mostly heard people that have talked about it. But isn't this exactly what he's saying is the reason that people aren't putting him in? Like this kind of thing, like this, what he's doing with the letter?
Yep, good point, yeah.
I mean, I feel like he's kind of just doing it again. So
he's standing his ground, man. Standing his ground. Not standing his ground. That's the wrong word. He's playing his
playing to the back of his baseball card, right?
Played to the back of his baseball card. Nicely done.
I remember the last couple years, the last 2 or 3 years, really probably every year we've been doing this podcast. When the Hall of Fame ballot comes up, we have been doing ours and saying who we think on the ballot should make it. And we didn't do that this year, but I remember looking at all that stuff last year and being surprised about how borderline he is for me. Like, cause before I started looking into all his numbers and everything, career numbers, I thought, well, yeah, Curt Schilling, of course he's a Hall of Famer. Why isn't he in yet? And then when I went back and looked, he had some seasons that I'm like, oh man, I don't remember him having a 4.97 ERA this year, or, having a down year this year or whatever, or only having 12 wins or something. I thought he was like a perennially a 19, 20 win guy every year he pitched or something. That in my head, that's who he was. But
what did your eye?
What's that?
What did your eye tell you when you watched Curt Schilling?
That's the thing.
That's your eye.
Exactly.
The Hall of Famer.
Exactly. That's what I mean. But before I looked at his numbers, I'm like, well, yeah, 2004 World Series or whatever. For that alone, almost he should go in. He put the ketchup on his sock and all that kind of thing. So the ketchup sock stunt is Hall of Fame worthy to me. So, no, it was just interesting to see him say that. And, who knows? I guess, was it this year was his last year, or next year is his last year on the ballot?
Next year's his last. Next year.
Okay. So he said, forget it. Don't even put me on. The other thing is, I feel like there are a lot of guys in his same position that just aren't saying it. Scott Rowland, I think, is kind of sitting, maybe he doesn't quite have the credentials, but his percentage jumped up like 20 or 25% this year from last year. So
only because there was nobody. Yeah,
maybe. But I mean, it's usually we see that, like, if you jump a pretty good amount, the next year you're going to go a little higher. Next year you're going to go a little higher usually. And so, there's a chance Scott Rowland in a couple of years might make the Hall of Fame. Scott Rowland might get in and Curt Schilling might not. And it's kind of weird to think of it.
So it is weird to think of it that way, because you can look at people's regular seasons and say, okay, well, Rowland had some phenomenal years and Schilling had some phenomenal years, and maybe they had some mediocre years, each of them both. But what Curt Schilling did for those Diamondback teams, for that Red Sox team, it's that stuff sets you apart, man. It sets you apart. Yeah. And to me, he was one of the most clutch playoff pitchers to ever step foot on a baseball field. It's like Madison Bumgarner, right? Bumgarner can have a terrible year, but he's probably the first guy I want on the mound in a playoff game.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. It was just kind of interesting to hear Curt Schilling be so loud about being disappointed about not making it this year in his second to last year on the ballot. So anyway, all right, let's jump into, it feels really weird that we went through our Mount Rushmore so quickly on such a big topic that we're planning on spending so much time on, but that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
Because we still have our comedy segment, which we love that too. So let's jump into that. You chose last week, Chris Rock's special. Netflix just kind of re-released his Tamborine special from last year. Total Blackout, the Tamborine Extended
Cut. So Adam, I was expecting, I know it said Extended Cut. I remember watching Tamborine. I don't really know where the differences come in, except for the cool little interviews. Those were nice. The Howard Stern interview was not nearly as funny as the interview in the very beginning. That was when he's with Jimmy Fallon. I was hoping that was just going to be the Jimmy Fallon show, because he was cracking me up in that. Anyway, you go first. Tell me what you think.
Well, number one, I agree wholeheartedly. I was going to say that is, I didn't pick out a whole lot of differences. Now, my memory is awful, but I know I watched Tamborine, and as he was saying most of these jokes, I'm like, that sounds familiar.
Coming back.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, so at the end of it, I'm like, well, yeah, the Jimmy Fallon thing, the Howard Stern thing, those were cool. I agree with you. And I'm not sure, like there were maybe one or two other jokes that I'm like, maybe I didn't hear this one, or maybe this is like there were like more tags onto a joke that I had heard before or something like that. But
Yeah.
Either way, it was really funny. I loved it. I'll tell you, one of my favorite things is when comedians go on talk shows. Sometimes it doesn't go well, but I mean, that's part of, I sit there while I'm working all day and I go through YouTube clip after YouTube clip of comedians on podcasts and on talk shows. And it's some of the funniest stuff ever. People on Conan, people on Letterman, and all the guys, and Fallon. So I love that. So it would be even better if they just added a whole, like his last 10 appearances on things like that and stuck that in there. I think that would have been awesome.
Yep.
All in one place at the same time. So I don't know how different it was. Like I said, my memory's terrible, but if I mostly just got to rewatch Tamborine, excellent. So I'm giving this total blackout. I'm giving it a 4.5.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you this. I've got 4.5 written down. So we gave it the exact same. And it's, for me, like you said at the end, I just felt like I had to rewatch Tamborine, but I had no problem with that. I had zero problem doing that. Chris Rock is one of my favorite comedians. And I don't ever really remember how much I love Chris Rock until I watch a special, right? Because after you watch a special, you just think about Chris Rock. And it's like, oh yeah, Chris Rock's got some funny stuff, but he can get a little loud or whatever. But then you watch a special and it's like, this dude, everything that comes out of his mouth is funny. There's no parts in there where you're like, okay, when's the next one coming? Never. You maybe not belly laugh, but you laugh at everything that he does. And it's mostly at him because of the way he delivers. There's no one that is Chris Rock and talks. I feel like Kevin Hart kind of has that. He's got his own delivery, right? Like Kevin Hart is like, there's a lot of comedians you could say, oh, that guy's a lot like him. He's a lot like him. He's a lot like him. Mm-hmm. Like Chris Rock is just Chris Rock. There is nobody else like Chris Rock. So yeah. I love the dude. I thought it was great. I don't like you said as well. Like I said earlier, I don't know what the extended cut was because I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, I remember that. Yep. Starting to ring a bell. Yep. I kind of remember that. Yep. Anyway, 4.5. I'm totally good with it.
I'm pretty sure one other thing that they did add was afterward. They showed him in the green room afterward, and Dave Chappelle and Arsenio Hall, and maybe one other guy was in there, and it started with Dave Chappelle telling Chris Rock how incredible he is, and he's like, he's like, you're like my favorite comedian. So he's like, he's my favorite comedian's favorite comedian. So I mean, like, and I thought that same thing. Yeah. And I thought that same thing when you were talking about, terrible time to throw this all the way back to here, but when you're talking about Vin Scully calling Hank Aaron's record-breaking home run, how lucky were we to have probably the greatest baseball broadcaster ever to be broadcasting that and calling that game. And I thought in that moment, I also thought it is our favorite Vin Scully is our favorite broadcaster's favorite broadcaster. So that just kind of came to me twice today. But anyway, that was another cool thing that Dave Chappelle was there and Arsenio Hall was there. I keep thinking there was another guy there too but anyway. And then they talked about, I don't know if it was on that or if I saw like an extended clip somewhere else from that same thing, but they told stories like Arsenio was talking about. Because they were talking about because those guys were like contemporaries and they like they like each other, you know, they're friends and they love each other's comedy and they support each other. And they were talking about how it wasn't always like that back in the day. Like Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy weren't friends. Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor were not friends. Eddie Murphy and Bill Cosby. Yeah.
We talked on this podcast. Eddie Murphy talks about how he idolized Richard Pryor, and then when he met him, it was like, you know, he starts hearing that Richard Pryor is talking about him behind his back, and like, you don't, you know, like there's only room for one black comedian, and you know, I'm him, you're not him, and Pryor obviously got it from Cosby, and it's cool to see those guys together.
Yeah, because they're all great, and so you want them to be friends, you know, like it's same in like basketball. It's kind of cool to see, you know, you do like that competition when they're on the floor and stuff like that. And basketball is different than comedy because you're actually competing against each other, literally competing against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to see that competitive drive, and you want to see some, some pushing against each other. But it is kind of cool that, like, you know, you like LeBron James and Luka Doncic and they like each other, or whatever, you know,
yeah,
whoever the two players, but that was cool. And I liked that Arsenio was telling the story about how I think he said it was at the Cellar that Richard Pryor was up and Eddie Murphy was kind of an up and coming, and like people were starting to realize how great he was, and he was like the next big thing. And somebody gave Richard Pryor a note while he was doing his set and said that, in the note said that Eddie Murphy's here. So basically Eddie Murphy popped in, and so he was going to go up next. So the comedian before you kind of introduces you, and Richard Pryor said, like, finished his joke or whatever. And he's like, and he says something like, this next guy, well, they say he's the next me, but I'm not done. I'm still me, or something like that. And and he said, Eddie Murphy. And so Eddie Murphy comes up, and Richard doesn't like walk out or walk to the back of the room. He walks to the step on the edge of the stage and sits on that step and watches Eddie Murphy do his stuff, and kind of like a little pressure, you know? And so I that was just a cool story to hear, you know? But anyway, that was another part that I think they added on to the end of that.
Yeah, without it. Yeah. Well, I don't remember the end of Tamborine, so like the credits part. So I doubt it was, though. That seems like something they would have added for this.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right.
There you go, man.
So
it was good. So now you have to pick a comedy special.
That's right.
So and I have to pick.
Yes. Would you like to go first, or would you like me?
No, not at all.
Okay. You look around the room and find something to do a Mount Rushmore for, and I'll tell you my comedy special. All right. So last year being 2020, now it's 2020 last year to me. A comedian that I liked. I'm pretty sure we haven't done this guy yet. We've done so many now, I'm starting to forget some of them, but I'm pretty sure we have not done this guy. And I've wanted to for a while. Guy by the name of Dan Cummins, Cummins, Dan Cummins. I think he's kind of most like Chad Daniels. We did Chad Daniels, his special, Dad Daniels. And Dan Cummins is kind of similar to him, kind of a similar humor, and a kind of the same age. He has kids. He has, you know, he's married. He talks a lot about that stuff, but really funny guy. And he did a special last year called Get Outta Here, Devil. Get Out of Here, semicolon, maybe the first semicolon in the title of a comedy special, and then Devil, exclamation point. It is on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime, got it.
Free on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime and you
everybody
watch this, almost everybody has.
Everybody's got Amazon Prime.
Everybody's got it. All right.
All right. So for my Mount Rushmore, I'm going with the Mount Rushmore of Nintendo video games. Original Nintendo video games.
Oh, gosh. Good on you, my man. That's good stuff.
All right. So big thanks to Adam Baum today. Sad day earlier this week with Mr. Hank Aaron. Hopefully Xavier gets to play basketball on Friday. Outside of that, we got Cummins, get out of here, Devil. And Mount Rushmore of Nintendo video games.
And we'll probably talk a little bit about the upcoming Super Bowl next week too.
Yes. We'll talk about that's good. Yes, we'll talk about Super Bowl, Pat Mahomes. We'll go over the spreads, and we'll probably make some kind of bet on it.
Sure. Why not?
Sounds like fun. All right, so there you go. So we'll go from there, and until next week, don't forget to turn on your headlights.